Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Fire Emblem 3 Houses Only Love Can Hurt Like This Part 1 in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 66, New Friendships. That evening was spent cleaning up the damage caused by the attack. Most of the people at the monastery were helping out. Ferdinand was helping move some rocks aside, but stopped because his back started to hurt. He stood to the side and stretched, letting out a small grunt. Ouch. My physique is pretty decent, but these rocks just refuse to budge. Petra approached Ferdinand from behind. Oh. Ferdinand. Are you needing a massage? Or maybe some help with lifting these rocks? She asked. You know, I always hear Casper say, teamwork makes the dream work. Is that what you are needing right now? A dream work? She asked, easily tossing aside one of the rocks he was trying to move. Ferdinand kindly accepted the offer. Ah, thank you. I could use a hand. I am a capable man, but I am more capable while working as a team. He chuckled. Yes, I have heard Casper going on about something like that before. Petra nodded, working with him to move the rocks. It was a lot easier having two people lift them at once. It has been a while since we have had a mission. Why do you think that is? Petra asked him. Ferdinand shook his head. I am not sure. I can quite literally feel my sword arm getting rusty. He moved his arm in a circular motion, moving some more debris. Lady Edelgard must be extremely busy, then. She has been leaving the monastery with Hubert day after day. I have been meaning to speak with her about it, but she has been dodging my attempts, he explained. Petra asked, looking at him. You mean they are telling nobody their destination? She frowned. That doesn't seem right. Like they are going behind our backs, she said sadly. Is it why we are having no missions? I hope you are not right about that. Lady Edelgard? Deceiving us? Leaving us in her wake? Something about that seems askew. As cold as she is sometimes, I cannot see her ever turning her back on us. He said, and Hubert just follows her wherever she goes, regardless of his thoughts on the matter. He grunted as he shoved some rubble into a pile. Maybe we should confront her? Not in a hostile way. Just a mature, tame confrontation. I do not think she is turning on us. Petra shook her head. I think that confronting her may not be the best answer. I can just tell that she would not answer us. Maybe. But with my persuasion skills. Who knows, Ferdinand said, leaning against the wall. That massage you mentioned is becoming more desirable by the minute, Petra. He stretched. Maybe, if I challenge her to a duel and win, I can get some information out of her. I would make a deal with her if I win. She has to tell me what she is up to. But I am a little too sore right now, I am afraid. Then I will duel in your stead. Edelgard has never been a match for Brigid fighting techniques, she told Ferdinand. I am almost certain that I will be able to have victory. Oh, no. I could not ask you to do that. As her esteemed rival, it is only fair that I am the one to triumph. He clutched his fist close to his heart. Let me just get some extra training in, and I will be as sharp as ever. If you want to help, though, perhaps we could spar in the near future. He smiled. Ah yes. I could train you, if you'd like. In the art of Brigid fighting techniques. And the art of ancient Brigid massage. She exclaimed. That would be fantastic. Ferdinand seemed really excited about their plans. Maybe, you could teach me how to fight with weapons from Brigid? If that is all right, I mean. If you have not noticed, I take great interest in unique and rare weapons. The weapons from Brigid seem incredible. Yes. I have a few in special protective cases back in my dorm room, if you would like to look at them sometime, Petra offered, dusting her hands off on her skirt. Of course. Ferdinand was a little too excited to worry about decorum, but then he composed himself. I mean, yes, of course. I would be delighted to behold such a beguiling sight. Thank you for the offer, Petra. He gave her a happy, charming smile. Anytime, my friend. She bowed her head slightly. Let us be finishing our work here first. Is that sounding all right to you? She tossed another rock to the side. right? As the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work. He laughed, then started moving the rocks again. He chatted her ear off about his rare weapon collection the whole entire time. Petra was actually very interested in what he had to say. Ah. It seems I have left my bag back in the classroom from yesterday. I am going to go and be grabbing it. Will you be meeting me in my room afterwards? Absolutely. Unless you need a hand with your bags, that is. I wouldn't mind lending you a hand. Ferdinand generously offered, dusting off his hands. Do you have anything in your room I could wipe my hands off with? I would not want to soil anything. Yes. Petra said, handing him the key to her room. Feel free to grab a towel from the third drawer in my dresser. She said, make it your own home. I will be meeting you there shortly. She hurried towards the classrooms to grab her book bag. Wow, you are more hospitable than you seem, Petra. You would trust me with the keys to your room. He took them from her, then gave her a trusting look. I will leave everything as is, except for the towel. Thank you very much. He started off toward her room, and when he got there, he unlocked it and went inside, then used the towel like Petra instructed. He'd never been in her room before, so he curiously gazed around. There was a notebook laying on the desk. The open window let in a soft breeze, which flipped the pages over ever so often. There was pretty handwriting on each page. It looked like a journal entry of some sort. On her dresser, there were cases filled with cool daggers and blades. The cases really caught his eye, and he gravitated toward them. He gazed in awe at the weapons before him. He noticed the journal, and since it was flipped open, he looked at what was written on the pages. It wasn't on purpose, it was sort of just like he accidentally saw because it opened right in front of him. The journal was open to one of the first pages. It was dated as the first day at the monastery. Day 1. It is my first week at school. I would be full of lies if I said that I am not full of nerves. I am in the Black Eagle's house, and Lady Edelgard is being kind, but stern. There is a very nice boy in my class. His hair is like fire. He showed me around the school. End of entry 1. Ferdinand smiled to himself upon noticing the positive reference to him. He was polite, so he didn't turn the page, although he was curious about whether or not she had written more about him. Another breeze flipped the pages of the diary. It was titled just last week. We lost the battle of the Eagle and Lion today. I fought very well, if I do say so myself. Bernadetta did practically nothing. Ferdinand was being very enchanting on the battlefield today. I would be loving to learn more of his battle styles. He is a handsome young man. I am afraid of Hubert. And am trying my best to get along with Casper. I love this school. Ferdinand raised his eyebrows when he read the part of him being enchanting. Enchanting, Well, that is just the Ager way. He read a little further, but his smile faded when he read what she wrote about being handsome, and he blushed. Handsome. I have heard people say it, but to see it written in someone's private records, he flipped his hair a little, then smiled again, not wanting to accidentally see more. He felt bad for invading her privacy. The wind caused the notebook to flip back a few more pages. The writing said, I am missing my father. So much. Some days are being much harder than others. There was a drawing of a frowny face on the page. My heart is jealous when I hear the other students talking about their fathers. I think, as my friends say, a warm hug can cure the way my heart is being in pieces. I have nobody that will hug me. I cannot say to someone that I want one, because what if they? Just then, Petra walked into the room. Ferdinand, hello. Ferdinand frowned. He suddenly felt really bad for her, and stopped meditating on his ego for a moment. He heard her enter, though, and quickly moved away from her journal. He turned around, a bright smile on his face. Petra. There you are. I was beginning to wonder what might be taking you so long. Is everything okay? He asked, thinking about her journal entries. He glanced back at her weapons case. I was just admiring your collection as I waited for you. It is remarkable. Yes. Would you like to be keeping one of them? Petra asked him. I figured you would want to. The only one being off limits is the bow, she told him. You are welcome to be having any of the others. Keep? One of these? Oh, no Petra. I could never. He walked up to the case again and admired what was inside. This one is beautiful, just look at that curvature. He smiled, then turned back to her. These are authentic weapons from Brigid. They belong to you. Rightfully so. He said. Maybe. But I am always having excitement to be sharing my culture with others, she said, opening up the case and taking the blade out. She handed it to him. Here, friend. Take it. Oh really? He reached for it, then hesitated. His hands hovered over the blade for a moment, like he was unsure, then he slowly reached out and took it from her. Wow, he breathed, admiring it. I am actually holding an authentic blade from Brigid, this is breathtaking. He smiled, unsheathing it for a moment to take a look at the blade before concealing it. How much do I owe you for it? I have my coin purse right here. He gently set the blade down, then started piling up his money on her desk. Will this do? This is everything I have on me at the moment. Oh me? Are you meaning in gold? Petra shook her head. The blade is not being for sale, she said with a small frown. It is for you to keep. I do not want anything in return for it. She pushed his money towards him. But I insist. This blade is beautiful, you are truly just giving it to me for free. He stared at it, and then at her. I really cannot thank you enough or repay you, for that matter. He started putting his coins away, but left the pouch on the desk. He stared at her for a second longer, then opened his arms just a little bit. May I? Yes. Petra nodded. I just said you may have it. She didn't seem to be catching on. She smiled. My heart is too happy to see how happy that it makes you. She clasped her hands together. Yes. I know. Ferdinand lowered his arms slightly, but thought about her journal entries and took a few steps forward. He gave her a warm smile. I know you are the heir to the throne in Brigid, but would you accept a hug from a mere noble of Fodlan? He asked. A hug, she raised her eyebrows. Yes. Yes, I would be accepting a hug, she said excitedly, walking forward as well, wrapping her arms around him cozily. This is the first time I have gotten a hug since coming to Fodlan. He let her hug him before putting his arms around her as well, feeling like he did a good deed. It didn't last super long, he moved away after a few seconds. Is that so? I cannot say I have received many either. I hope my kind gesture has made you happy, Petra. Yes, it has made me very happy to be receiving such a lovely hug. She smiled, though a bit sad that the hug only lasted a few short moments. I've always wanted a hug from a new friend. Is that being silly of me? Silly? No. It is only natural for humans to want some friendly contact every now and then. It gives us a sense of belonging and makes us feel joy, he said, glad that he could make her smile. May I be asking, will you use that weapon? She pointed at the blade. Or do you plan on leaving it out to be looking at it? I am a collector, so there is a chance it may be put on display. Front and center, I might add. But it seems extremely lethal. If I was my enemy, I would be shaking in my boots if I laid eyes on that thing. He paused. So let me ask you this, what do you want me to do with it? It would honor me greatly if you were using it in battle. But putting it on display is almost just as honorable, Petra told him. I have never used it in battle before. You should be the first. So you want me to use it? He nodded. All right, then. I will. And I will take excellent care of it so that I may maximize its use. I am skilled in the art of weapon upkeep, so I will make sure nothing happens to it. I might just keep it on display a little idle longer so that I can marvel at its pristine condition, he said. She chuckled. I am not blaming you. It is being very sleek, is it not? She smiled up at him. With the way you fight, I'm sure you will be making the best use out of it. You know what would make it even better? Is if I learned the fighting techniques of Brigid. This blade is meant for Brigid-style fighting, is it not? I would enjoy learning from you very much. You are well versed in combat, I could certainly learn a thing or two from you. That, yes. Petra exclaimed. I would be very happy if you will be letting me train you, Ferdinand. She smiled up at him. I would love nothing more than to pass on my wisdom. I'm not from Brigid, nor am I very informed on its history or geography, but it sounds like an interesting place. Perhaps you could teach me more as we train? Ferdinand asked. My heart would break from happiness, she said with a small nod. When would you like to be having our first session? As soon as possible, Ferdinand told her. At least, as soon as you are available. I am pretty busy nowadays, but I will make time for this. I am being free tomorrow after class. If that is okay with you? She asked, opening the door for him. That is more than all right. Thank you for your time, Petra. I am honored. Really, I am. I am looking forward to this. He smiled, walking to the door with his weapon. I will see you tomorrow, Petra. Have a pleasant evening, okay? I will, Ferdinand. She waved to him before closing the door. She squealed with excitement, doing a little happy dance. When she shut the door, he sort of did the same thing. Instead of a happy dance, he sort of just did a happy little motion with his arms and legs and then smiled before walking off, holding his head high. That day passed. It was tense for the most part, with everyone hearing about what happened to Flane, and dying down from the attack. The next day, the weather was extremely beautiful. Lawrence was walking down the hall, holding a little diary-looking journal in his hand. He was examining it closely, looking confused. He read some of it out loud to himself. NTW. What could that possibly stand for? Snow day, and, oh. That is. Lawrence. Lysithea approached him. What is that you have there? By the look on your face, I have a feeling it isn't yours. Are you being nosy? Nosy? No. I just happened to find this peculiar item lying on the ground, so I picked it up. It seems like some sort of planner? A logbook? There are activities written in here. Things romantic partners would do, Lawrence told her. Well, give it to someone you know who's in a relationship. As far as I know, Hilda and Ignatz are the only two in a relationship. At least I think so. I don't really keep tabs on this sort of thing. This could possibly be one of theirs, he studied it. There are no names written in this book. I would return this to the owners, but there is no way for me to do that unless I ask around. Lawrence closed the book. I should be paying more attention. Perhaps this could belong to someone besides them. How? Unless there's some sort of secret relationship. If so, that is not our business, Lawrence, she replied. Where did you find it? Secret relationship? You think so? He raised an eyebrow. You know what? He looked at the front and back covers one more time. If someone is trying to keep their whereabouts a secret, they should not leave stuff like this lying around for all to see. Would you answer my question? Lysithea sighed in frustration. Wherever did they leave it? She asked again. That would be a good start. My apologies. I was lost in thought. But I found it in the upstairs hallway, he pointed upwards. I was thinking of asking around, but whoever dropped it would know I have seen its contents, if I returned it to the proper owner. Well, how else are you supposed to find the owner? Lysithea asked. Is there anything else in there that could hint at who wrote it? Let me see. Lawrence started flipping through the book. Just a bunch of date ideas, the first one is circled. It says, see a play. Whoever dropped this notebook clearly has a refined taste. There's a mixture of things though. Training? Are you sure this is for dates? She asked. Who would use training as a date? She sighed. Then again, I really don't know the first thing about dating. Training can be an excellent way to get to know a person. The way a person fights can tell you much about their personality, strengths, and weaknesses. Lawrence looked at the sparring point, and then read aloud, get dressed up and go to a fancy restaurant. Why go to a restaurant if it is not high-end in the first place? Would you stop that? Lysithea crossed her arms. Stop making this about you. She took the book from him. Let's see, beach day. Beach day? Ha! Like that will be easy to come by with the state this place is in. Lawrence sighed. We could all use a little rest and relaxation, though. Agreed. He kept flipping through the pages. This latest entry here, it says, bring him to the animal shelter, there are always cats. Ah, so this must belong to the lady, Lawrence assumed. Cats, someone that loves cats. Lysithea put her finger on her chin, thinking for a moment. This could very well be Marianne's. Right? I feel like Ignatz is the type to like kittens. That is a very strong educated guess. But, would they write something so scandalous in here? I would not expect that from our own Marianne. He pointed to something Sylvain definitely wrote in there just to make Felix blush. Lysithea covered her eyes like a little baby. Ew. I do not want to see that. She shook her head. That's definitely not Marianne. There's no way. She dropped her arms to her sides, avoiding looking at the book so she wouldn't read the line. Of course it is not Marianne. Unless there is a secret side of her that none of us are aware of. But I highly doubt that. Lawrence closed the book so that Lysithea didn't have to see it. Some poor soul is oblivious to the fact that we have seen into her love life. I almost feel ashamed to have read the contents, but it would have been wrong not to search for a hint as to who this belongs to. Well, it looks like we just need to find a male who likes cats. Right. Lysithea shrugged. Simple enough. Maybe. I don't know, why don't we just ask around? That could be anyone. Who doesn't feel overcome with adoration every time they see a sweet feline making its rounds? He smiled. They are alluring creatures. Okay. Then let's stop beating around the bush, and ask everyone whose notebook it is. Someone needs to fess up, right? Lysithea pointed out. All right. The next person I come across, I will ask. Come. Lawrence beckoned to Lysithea, walking down the hall. He saw Yuri, so he approached him. Good day to you. I have a query. Is this yours? He held the notebook out to him. Yuri suddenly looked panicked. Wait, where did you get that? He asked. Lysithea answered him. Ah. Well, I guess we have our answer. It was upstairs. Is this yours? She asked, pointing to it. Yuri felt around his pockets, but suddenly stopped, pulling out his own little notebook. Ah. No. Seems I've mistaken. My journal has a doppelganger, it seems. That's not mine after all. He told them, putting his notebook away. Lawrence said, apologies for the confusion, my good fellow. We will be on our way. He took Lysithea with him. That's weird. Maybe, oh. Ignatz, Lysithea waved him over. Is this yours? Oh. I've never seen that before, Ignatz replied. I'm sorry you too. Lysithea crossed her arms. This is proving to be more difficult than expected. They asked. Mercedes and Annette, Didu, Bernadetta, Dorothea, Ingrid, Marianne, and Claude. All of them said that the journal wasn't theirs. Nearby, Sylvain literally had his whole torso hidden in a trash can as he rummaged around. He's gonna kill me, he's actually going to kill me. He muttered frantically. An apple with one bite out of it rolled across the floor towards Lysithea. What the ew? Sylvain. If you're looking for women in there, that is insanely insulting. Lysithea sneered, kicking the apple at him. What? Sylvain stood up, looking her way. I am not looking for women in the trash. I know very well that I wouldn't find any in there anyway, because all women are beautiful treasures that nobody should toss aside or throw away. He threw the apple back in the trash. Okay. Well, now that we have you here, do you know anything about this notebook? We've asked so many people, and still have nothing. Please tell me you know something about it. Lawrence walked over with Lysithea, holding out the notebook. Do you know the owner of this dropped item? He asked. Sylvain gasped a little, then snatched it from him. Where did you find this? Did you read it? He sounded horrified. Of course we read it. We've been trying to find the owner all day, Lysithea explained. Now I get why those icky things were written in there. Lawrence flinched a little when Sylvain snatched it from him, then stood with his hands on his hips. Do be careful not to leave things like this lying around. I only flipped through it to find out who the owner may be. It was not because I was trying to take a peek into your love life. Which is very complicated, if what I hear about you is true. He remarked. Sylvain put the book in his bag. You weren't supposed to see that. Nobody was. What makes you think it's okay to look through people's stuff like that? Even if you were just trying to find a name in there, that's not okay. He seemed angry, but also a little fearful. What the? Rude. You should be grateful. Lysithea pointed at him. We've been looking for the owner all day. You're lucky we didn't dump it in the trash before finding you, she said, stomping her foot. If you don't want people reading about your perverted fantasies, then don't go leaving them around for everyone to look at. I didn't leave it around for anyone to look at. It must have fallen out of my bag or something during the fight yesterday, Sylvain said. And it's not perverted. That's what couples do. He frowned. Lawrence said, anyway. Before this situation becomes vulgar, I am just curious, is this just a notebook about one of the women you are pursuing? Or? I noticed a small detail amongst the margins. Sylvain's face got red. Yep. Yeah. There's a girl I like, and this is all the stuff I want to do with her, and all the stuff she wants to do with me. So, that's it. Hope you're happy you snooped and dug a little too far into my personal life. Okay, so why does it specifically say, take him to an animal shelter? Lysithea asked. It's your handwriting, is it not? Lysithea didn't sugarcoat her words. Lawrence and I were thinking this would belong to a girl. I said, this is a notebook that we share. So yeah. Technically it belongs to her too. Sylvain lied. But what do you even care so much? This is none of your business. Yeah, I know the rumors about me spread like wildfire, but don't start any more, okay? Please. How low do you think of us? Lysithea said. We're not going to tell anyone about it, okay? She looked up at Lawrence. Well, we found it. Finally, huh? Nice job, partner. Sylvain frowned, then walked away. Lawrence said, well done indeed. We are capable detectives, are we not? Although, things still do not add up. He connected the dots in his mind, remembering the conversation he had with Felix in the bathhouse long ago. No. I have a feeling he's lying about something. I mean, remember what happened at the slumber party? Lysithea asked Lawrence. I wouldn't rule that possibility out. And why was he so defensive? Only a defensive person has something to defend, Lawrence said. Nobody acts that way if they are not safeguarding something like a secret, he remarked. I am almost 100% positive that he is trying not to let anyone know that he is gay. Or something along those lines. I only assume from the usage of he in the diary, and, yes. The slumber party. Although I do not like to recall what mortifying behavior I was forced to engage in. He gagged thinking about it. Lysithea sighed. He is right, it's none of our business who he spends his life with. Though. Why does he feel like he needs to keep it a secret? She asked Lawrence. Perhaps because the way of the world is so, what is the word for it, rigid. He said, with the way the world is now, that type of life would be hard to live, especially for nobles. Commoners can marry whomever they choose. Their lineage matters not to the world, or to the Church of Ceros, he explained, trailing off. He seemed deep in thought. I guess you have a point. But, life is short, no. Lysithea said with a small frown, looking away from him. It makes a lot more sense to me if people live their lives the way they want to, rather than following some silly rule. Sometimes, following a silly rule is the difference between life and death, Lawrence said, snapping out of his muse. Perhaps, that is why Sylvain was acting so defensive? Life is short, but it could be shortened even more if you are careless with your decisions. Lysithea got quiet. She nodded her head slightly. Well, this was fun. Weird as it is to say. She liked hanging out with Lawrence. I have some studying to do. Thank you for finding the owner with me. Lawrence gave her a slight bow, then said, "The pleasure is all mine. I bid you farewell, and a lovely rest of your day. Be sure to do something nice for yourself," he encouraged, starting to head off. Lysithea raised her eyebrows. She was surprised by how much she was enjoying Lawrence's company lately. She watched him walk away, and then took his advice and got herself a slice of cake. Chapter 67, Food Fight. It was around lunchtime. Edelgard was sitting alone at a table behind Dmitri, staring at him as his back was turned. She wasn't eating, but she had her utensils gripped tightly in her hand. "Your Highness." Dida was sitting across from Dmitri. "I do not want to disturb you, but Edelgard is starting at you in a very unpleasant manner." He spoke softly. "She looks just about ready to impale you with her silverware. If she turns her fork against me, I will meet her with my knife," Dmitri savagely said, stabbing at his steak to tear a piece off. He ate it, but it didn't seem like he was enjoying it very much. "This is bothering me," Dida said, standing up from his seat. He walked around the table, and sat himself down across from Edelgard. Even sitting, he towered over her. "We need to talk. What is your issue with His Highness?" Edelgard seemed to loosen up after Didu came to the table, gently setting her silverware down. "Didu," she said plainly. "I do not know what you are talking about. The only issue I have right now is finding the time to study for an upcoming test. It has nothing to do with Dmitri. Don't lie to me." Didu slammed his fist on the table and raised his voice slightly. "Your words have been tormenting him ever since the battle of the eagle and lion." He was getting so angry, which was unlike him. Didu's sudden outburst actually startled her, but she didn't let it show. She kept her composure. "My intentions were not to torment him. I merely was stating a fact. I wanted to help him with his self-actualization," Edelgard said. Dmitri heard the bang and turned around, concerned. His cheek was full of steak since he was in the middle of eating. Hubert came and stood behind Didu. Didu didn't notice Hubert standing behind him. He said, "I advise you to leave him alone. I do not care that you are royalty. You are bothering His Highness, and I will not hesitate to hurt you for your wrongdoings." He stood back up. Hubert gently tapped Didu on the shoulder to alert him of his prescience. He stood with his hands behind his back. Hubert said, "If I catch you threatening Lady Edelgard again, I might have to dispose of you." He glared. Edelgard said, "My relationship with Dmitri is no business but our own. I advise you to stay out of it." Didu turned around. "If you'll excuse me," he walked back to Dmitri, and sat across from him. "I am angry," he stated. Edelgard urged Hubert to sit down with her. Dmitri swallowed his bite. "I can tell. I heard you over there. It's a bit strange to hear you acting so expressively. You're usually so closed off with your emotions. At least, more so to others rather than me." "I do not care. She is clearly plotting against you, Your Highness, and I will not stand idly by and watch as it happens." Didu shook his head. "I just worry for you. That is all. I know you're worried, but I don't want to drag you into this feud. This is my problem, and although I appreciate your inclination to help, I think this is one fight that I want to take part in alone. Staying out of this is an order, Diduce," Dmitri told him, turning around in his seat to look at Edelgard. He narrowed his eyes. Hubert took it as offensive and looked at Edelgard for approval, then threw a glob of mashed potatoes at Dmitri. It hit him in the face before plopping onto the floor. Didu gasped, rising to his feet once more. He heard Dmitri's order, but he didn't care at the moment. He marched over to Hubert. "You are despicable. Keep away from His Highness." He socked him straight in the face with his fist, jamming his fist against Hubert's nose. Hubert knocked backwards and fell out of his seat, laying knocked out on the floor. There was already a dark bruise forming on his face. The whole dining hall had their eyes on Didu. Some random church soldiers pointed at Didu, and someone shouted, "He's a monster." A monk came up to Dmitri and scolded him. "Keep that guard dog of yours under control. He shouldn't even be here in the first place." That just put Dmitri over the edge, and he stood up and knocked everything off the table because he was so angry. "Do not talk down to him that way. Edelgard stooped over Hubert. I advise you stay away before you get into any more trouble than you already are. She looked up at Didu. And I advise that you keep your distance from His Highness. Didu kept his voice level, though he was breathing heavily. I will not hesitate to do that again, if you two continue to be a problem for him. He didn't back away from the two of them. See what happens if you do. Honestly, there might not be a next time. Edelgard replied. With the help of a staff member, she helped carry Hubert to the medics. A duo of knights came up from behind Didu. Come with us. We won't sugarcoat it, we have already decided expulsion is the best way to deal with the problem. Dmitri shoved past them and stood in front of Didu. Leave him alone. He still had some mashed potatoes on his face. Didu put his hands on Dmitri's shoulders from behind. I am not leaving, he said. If I am gone, there will be nobody to stand up for His Highness. I will remain at Garagmach until my graduation. Thank you very much. This was the first time that he had actually stood up for himself. No, you will not. You struck a noble and threatened the future Empress of Adrestia. Clearly, you pose as a danger to society figures. Since you caused the tragedy of Dusker, the soldier said. Dmitri was trying so hard not to do anything he might regret, but it was so hard. He was shaking, he was so mad. Go away. He pointed to the door. I am not going to tell you again. Didu actually seemed a bit hurt by the soldiers for once. Listen to the prince, Didu advised. As a soldier, it is your duty to follow his instructions. I'm not gonna take orders from you, the soldier said to Didu. As far as we know, His Highness is a student at this school like everyone else. And he will have to obey the Church of Siros, he said. Dmitri demanded, leave. The soldier said, we will not hesitate to expel you, too. You have a history of unprovoked violence against Lady Edelgard as well, if you remember the Battle of the Eagle and Lion. Plus, you'll never be a proper ruler if you cater to the needs of someone from Dusker. Dmitri had enough. Unable to control his anger any longer, he took a tomato from the basket on the table, smushed it in his hand, then smashed it against the soldier's face. I said leave him alone. He looked like he immediately regretted doing that right after what happened. Didu, with his hand still on Dmitri's shoulder, pulled him back a few steps. Well done, Your Highness. Didu said, sounding satisfied with Dmitri's actions, even though it clearly wasn't the smartest thing to do. The soldier yelled out in surprise, then started spitting out bits of tomato. He gasped. Ah! It burns. He covered his face and spun around. Although he wasn't proud to admit it, Dmitri meant it to cause harm. The other soldier was mortified by this behavior. Absolutely deviant. You both are coming with me. Dmitri hung his head, then started to go with. Ash walked over and innocently tapped on the soldier's shoulder. Excuse me? The soldier looked at him. Why are you taking away the prince? He asked again, why, he wanted clarification. Didu stood beside Dmitri, and turned to look at Ash. He explained. It's all one big misunderstanding. They are attempting to expel us. Expel? Oh no, we can't have that. Who will lead our house? Without the prince and Didu, our house will fall apart. We'll have no one to lead us, Ash made pleasing eyes at the soldier. Dmitri didn't say anything, he just looked back and forth between the soldier and Ash. You didn't even ask for approval before taking them away to be expelled. If you knew the rules of your position, you'd know that, Ash said. The soldier stared at him, then roughly let Didu and Dmitri go. Fine. But I'm going to report this at once. He marched off. Ash looked at both of them. Are you okay? Didu nodded. We are okay. Thank you, Ash, we owe you for your help today. Thank you, he said again, pulling Dmitri close to him. Are you hurt, Your Highness? No, Dmitri said, shaking his head. I'm not hurt. But I am upset. He frowned. I need a healthy way to release my anger at the moment. He started looking around. Ash said, you're very welcome. I couldn't just stand there and let them take you both away. I look up to you. He looked at Didu. Didu, you are such a kind soul. You stick up for those you care about. I want to be just like you. Oh. Ash, thank you. Didu smiled slightly. That means a lot to me. But it seems you are better than I. He sighed slightly, then turned back to Dimitri. Would you like to go to the training grounds? Better? Than you. Oh no. I could never be. Ash's face was red hot. He put his hands on his cheeks. That's too high of praise, Didu. He got all embarrassed. Dimitri replied to Didu, yes. Let's go. Now. He already started walking. Ash said, I will pray hard for both of you. Thank you, Ash. If you'll excuse us. Didu bowed slightly before hurrying after Dimitri. Take deep breaths. He told Dimitri as they walked. You will be all right. Ash watched him head off, looking a bit worried. Dimitri tried to do as he was told to keep calm as they arrived at the training grounds. Immediately, he picked up a training lance and started fighting. Didu fought against Dimitri, just kind of letting him whack against his training axe as hard as he could. Ferdinand was standing off to the side, watching after finishing up his training session with Petra. He was a little sweaty. He looked at her. Were you there for what happened at lunch today? Petra shook her head, wiping her forehead. No. What has happened? She asked, letting out a deep breath and hanging her sword up on the rack. There was a fight between Prince Dimitri and Didu against Lady Edelgard and Hubert. I only caught the last bit of it, but I heard Didu started it by provoking Hubert. He frowned, and then he punched Hubert's lights out, but I think Edelgard threw food at Dimitri or something. I am not exactly sure how it happened, but now everyone is saying the Blue Lion's house is done for. Who is throwing food? Food is not to be wasted. Petra put her hands on her hips. I see Dimitri right there, she said. I cannot see how they would be done. Their leader is still there. That is, just what I heard. I walked past just as Prince Dimitri smashed a fruit right into one of the soldiers' faces. Can you believe he actually did that? That is going to reflect poorly on his record, he said, using a small cloth to wipe some sweat off his brow. And poor Hubert. His head is probably going to be throbbing for days on end. Can you imagine a headache that bad? Throbbing, I haven't been hearing of that word, Petra said, a look of confusion on her face. Anyways, I think it would be best if we stayed out of this situation. It is not ours to deal with, Ferdinand. Throbbing? Ah, it just means. How do I explain throbbing? He put a hand to his head. If I had to explain it, I guess I would say it feels like a painful heartbeat in your head. He paused. But anyway, you are right. This is not our business, he said. But anyway, thank you for introducing me to the Brigid fighting style today, Petra. My debts to you just keep piling up. He smiled. Oh. You keep saying that you are owing me things, but that is not being truthful. Petra shook her head. It is payment enough to have you as a friend, Ferdinand. I am happy to be getting to know you better. Well, someday I am going to repay you, be it tomorrow, or years from now. I will find a way to repay you for your kindness. He smiled. You are a generous person, Petra. And a fierce fighter, I might add. I am really glad that we are getting to know each other better as well. You are a great friend. Maybe we can be doing other things that friends are doing. Petra asked. I am not close with anyone at this school, as she admitted, so I do not do many friendly activities. As she exited the training grounds with Ferdinand, Felix, and Ingrid entered to do some training as well. There are many things friends do together to have a nice time. For instance, we just trained together. That is something friends do. He kept smiling, not realizing how big his smile was when he was around Petra. We could share a meal together, take walks, go fishing, take a trip into town, the possibilities are endless. I could show you my weapons and armor collection, and you can teach me how to hunt by using Brigid techniques. That is all sounding so much fun. Petra exclaimed, clapping her hands a few times. What is your favorite hobby? She asked. My hobby is a walk. And I would be loving to teach you to hunt, Ferdinand. She sounded very happy. My favorite pastime. Well, I always do enjoy a good cup of tea. I cannot call it a proper day if I do not have my daily cup of tea, Ferdinand said. I also enjoy horseback riding. I am not sure how adequate you are at the skill, but if you would like to go riding with me sometime, that would be lovely. He paused, thinking. I also enjoy visiting the animals around the monastery. They are quite cute, are they not? I have always wanted a dog of my own. Oh yes. I give the little puppies and kittens all the leftover fish they could ever be wanting. Petra exclaimed. I do not go near the horses much. They would not be liking to consume fish, you know. She giggled. No, I have never heard of a horse that likes fish before. Ferdinand chuckled. But the dogs and cats love it, yes. Maybe we could feed them together sometime. Yes. I have a spare rod back in my room. If you don't have one, we can be using mine, she said with a smile. Thank you for spending time with me today. Really? That would be fantastic. We should meet up after lunch again. How about we make a habit of it? He suggested, giving her a slight nudge with his arm. You are very welcome. It is an honor to make friends with the heir to Brigid's throne, not just because of your status, though. You are a lovely person. Truly. Oh. She suddenly seemed to question him. Well, thank you very much. I will be seeing you tomorrow after lunch, Ferdinand. She opened up her arms. Ferdinand smiled, then went to give her a hug. It didn't last too long because he was a little sweaty from training, but it still made him happy. And with that, I am off. Have a nice afternoon, my friend. He gave her a bow, then headed off. I will be having a nice afternoon. She stood on her tippy toes as she waved goodbye to him. She went to her room after that, and immediately began writing in her journal. After Ferdinand made it past the wall, he stood against it and placed his hand against his heart, smiling dreamily to himself. Chapter 68, I'll always be around for you. Later, when evening started to come around, there was a light knock on Dorothea's door. Coming. Give me 1 second. It took her a second, but Dorothea eventually opened up the door. Hello. Linhard stood at her doorway, holding a book under his arm. Good evening, Dorothea. I was just wondering if you had a little time to chat. He looked sort of tired. Lin. What a pleasant surprise. She smiled. Of course I have time to chat with you. She opened the door wider. Won't you come in? Thank you, Linhard said, walking inside. He set his book down on her desk and sat down in a chair, letting out a yawn. If I have to listen to Casper go on and on and on about his new girlfriend, I think I'm going to have to go into hibernation so I don't have to hear it. Oh, Linhard, Dorothea frowned, closing the door behind them. I'm so sorry. That can't be fun for you, she pointed to the bed. You're welcome to take a nap here if that's what you need. She paused. What am I saying? You always need one. If I wanted to take a nap, I'd sleep in my own room. I came here to talk to you, he said. But, no. It's rather grueling. Of course I want the best for him, but, he paused. Are you familiar with the saying, if it makes you happy, it makes me happy? I am. Is that what you've been telling him? She asked. Because he has seemed more cheerful than usual lately. Even I've noticed this. No. I haven't been telling him that. Because that's not the truth. Why would I want to see him falling for someone else when I clearly want him to notice me that way instead? Why should it make me happy for him to find someone else? If anything, I'm jealous. And a little sad. It's okay to be a little selfish sometimes. It's emotionally validating. Linhard frowned. Oh, of course. Dorothea exclaimed. I relate with this one, she said, nodding her head. But who says the two of them will last forever? The two of them may not last forever, but then the next girl will come around. And possibly a few others until it finally does last forever. And, undoubtedly, I will never be part of that cycle. Linhard sighed. Do you know that for sure? She asked with a small frown. You know, Lin, you really don't deserve this, she said sadly. I feel for you. Yes. There's no way Casper would ever fall for me. It takes a lot for him to fall for anybody. I'm surprised he was even interested in anyone, Linhard said. No, you don't have to feel for me. I understand that this matter is trivial compared to other things on my plate. Although I do appreciate your support. He thought about her situation with Ingrid, which made him a little more upset. Dorothea replied, yes, but we are still in school. Things like relationships mean a lot to people like us. Especially when it comes to nobles, she said that last part a bit angrily. Speaking of that, he paused, looking at the floor. I honestly have no intention of carrying on the duties of my house. My father puts a lot of pressure on me to pass down the family name, but I really don't care. At all. It's too political. Yeah, it worries me somewhat that my bloodline may die out, but in the end, does it really matter? The only interest I have in my bloodline is my crest. That's it. He shrugged. She raised her eyebrows. I'm going to be honest, I really didn't expect that from you. Like, at all. She smiled. Good for you, Lin. Not many nobles are brave enough to say that. Dare I say, even think that. Of course, if getting married meant advancing my crest studies, then I might follow through. But I don't have much interest in my father's responsibilities. It sounds tiring. I'd rather live a life free of responsibility. I wish my life could just consist of sitting with a good book, sipping on a warm cup of tea, and napping the days away in peace. He stared at the ground. Didn't I promise you that? Dorothea reminded him. If we end up settling down with one another, that would be every day of our lives. She exclaimed. I know, but even so. I have an inkling something is going to feel like it's missing. It does sound like a nice life, but I think I'm more so wishing for you to find someone who loves you, who you can spend your life with. Linhard picked his head up. Ah well, that would be nice, would it not? Her voice softened. I'm not sure if I'll ever have that, she told him. As long as I have someone to take care of me, and I of them, that's all I want. Don't get me wrong, you're a wonderful person. But I can't ever see myself fulfilling you in a way anyone else can, which is why I am determined to find a way for you to end up with Ingrid, he said. There's no stopping me. After all you've been through at the academy, you deserve to be happy. I saw you sharing a dance with her at the ball. I don't think I've ever seen you happier. Dorothea frowned suddenly. We had a talk. She likes Prince Dmitri, Dorothea stated. She expressed interest in going on an actual date with me, but, every time I ask, she claims she can't, or she has other plans. Something has been very off with that girl. I'm afraid the prince is abusing her. Linhard suddenly looked shocked. Prince Dmitri? You really think he would do that? He paused. Well, I guess he has been losing control of his impulses lately. If you remember the Battle of the Eagle and Lion, he said, what if I found out for you and reported back? I have a knack for digging up information. You know? I would appreciate that. Ingrid refuses to tell me what's going on. She's just covered head to toe in bruises, the poor girl. And with what happened at lunch today, I would not be surprised if it was because of Dmitri. What would the prince have to gain by causing harm to Ingrid? It doesn't make any sense, unless he has a hidden agenda, Linhard thought to himself. Are you close with Ingrid? I mean, close enough where you could just ask her if he's been hurting her? Does she trust you that much? That's what I'm saying. She's refusing to tell me every time I bring it up, she said again. She finds a way to change the subject until I just stop asking. She's clearly trying to conceal whatever is going on, which is deeply troubling, especially for you. I normally wouldn't spend so much effort thinking through something like this, but it's for you, so I'm glad to help you get to the bottom of this. What if, instead of talking to Ingrid, you confront Prince Dmitri? I mean, that could potentially work, Dorothea said, putting a single finger on her chin. I've only ever had a few interactions with him. I don't know if it would be easy, but I can try. I could stand by for moral support, if need be. I don't know how much support I'd be, but if having me near would calm your nerves, I'd be happy to tag along. I'll make sure to be highly observant of all his mannerisms. Dorothea smiled again. You're such a good friend, Linhard. When I speak of eating the rich, please know that does not include you. She joked. But thank you really. No thanks required. But I'm glad you see the good in me. Most people just see me as lazy. Which I can be. But not all the time. Contrary to what most believe, I actually do put in the effort when it's something I'm interested in. He stood up and stretched. And thank you for letting me in for a chat. I needed something to get my mind off of Casper's Hilda this and Hilda that. He let out a sigh and picked up his book. Of course, my darling. You are always more than welcome here, Dorothea said, smiling brightly. Oh, and guess what? Wait before you go. She opened up a drawer, and handed him a pair of grey fuzzy slippers. They matched her red ones. Ta-da! Linhard gave her a small smile and was about to head out the door, but stopped when she told him to wait. Oh? Are those for me? He took them from her, immediately slipping off his shoes and putting the slippers on instead. I am never wearing regular shoes again. Consider that a compliment. He laughed. Thank you, again. I do mean it when I say I'm never taking these off. With one last smile back at her, he exited the room and headed back to his own. Dorothea laughed. Enjoy. They'll put you right to sleep. She closed the door, going back to her homework. Later that night, Ingrid also had a visitor. Dmitri knocked on her door. Ingrid opened the door. Oh. Your Highness. What are you doing here? She asked. I apologize for visiting you so late, but, he kept his voice down. I've come to check in on you. I was going to drop by sooner, but, certain circumstances disallowed that, he said. Oh. Thank you, that means a lot to me, Ingrid said with a small nod. I'm okay. He's coming to visit Gareg Mach first thing tomorrow. She said sadly, referring to her abusive arranged marriage partner. Then you must invite me along. He cannot lay a finger on you if I am present to bear witness, Dmitri said, sounding worried for his friend. I won't accept no for an answer. I can't ask you to do that. She exclaimed. He only hurts me if I disobey, she informed him. Which has been quite a bit as of late. She sighed. I feel so pathetic. I'm so strong. And I know I am. I'm not doubting that. So, why do I feel so powerless against him? You're not powerless against him. Think of his power over you as an illusion. You're capable of more than you think. You're one of the strongest women I know. Actually, you are the strongest woman I know. And this suitor of yours shouldn't be allowed to control you. He is giving us the most money Galatea territory has ever seen. Ingrid explained. I can't give this up. I can't. It wouldn't be right, she sighed. Your well-being is more important to me than money. I could give you more money than he ever could, really. I want to fund your house to keep you on your feet. You shouldn't have to do this. Thinking about your pain and suffering is taxing. It's always in the back of my mind. I'm angry about it. Ingrid blushed slightly. Thank you, Your Highness, but again, I couldn't, she said. You need to use that money for other things. If anything, I can request help from Rodrigue. I'm sure he'll have an idea, though telling him my situation wouldn't be the smartest. You don't need to rely on Rodrigue. Regardless, I'm going to give you the money you need when I rise to the throne. And you are young to take it, and use it to get out of the situation if it's still going on by then. I pray to the goddess that you're able to break away from this before my coronation, Dmitri said. Ingrid. Let me help you. He made eye contact. Ingrid's mouth dropped open slightly as she looked back at him, her cheeks a bright pink color despite the bruises on her face. It would be wrong to turn you down, Dmitri, she said. Dmitri waited a few moments after her response to say anything. Then let me be present when he comes to visit. That way, if you want to give him the truth and break things off, I will be there to protect you. If he does anything to hurt you, I won't hold back. Dmitri, thank you. Gratitude sparkled in her eyes. I cannot thank you enough. She smiled gently at him. You are going to make a wonderful king one day. The compliment seemed to really make him feel good about himself. judging by the softening expression on his face. "Thank you," Dmitri said. He'd heard Dida tell him this many times, but for some reason, it felt extremely nice to hear it from Ingrid as well. It meant a lot in the moment. "And I'm going to have the best night in the whole kingdom serving me." "Ah. Yes, I'm going to strive for that." Ingrid nodded. "That is, if I can beat Felix in a duel," she said. "And don't even mention Didu. You really have a lot of people on your side." "I do. I'm very fortunate in that way. But don't humble yourself too much. You should be proud to be as strong as you are. I'd say you don't need to strive for that. It's already true," he told her. "Oh. Wow. That is very high praise." She seemed a bit flustered. "Thank you." "Yes. I am very proud," she said, seeming nervous and fumbling her words. Dmitri didn't question why she seemed flustered. He just assumed it was probably because she was nervous about the visit tomorrow. "I know this is a little out of the blue, but, if you'd like, we can spend some time together at the training grounds. I can help you practice some self-defense techniques. Hopefully you won't have to use them, but still." "Yes. I would like that very, very much, Your Highness," she said eagerly. "I could use some lessons from you. I mean, that is, if you're okay with that. I'm the one who offered." "Why wouldn't I be okay with it?" Dmitri asked, glad that she seemed eager to take part. "I'm willing to sustain a few injuries and sore spots from letting you practice. It will be worth it, should you ever find yourself in danger." He frowned. "I don't think I could ever bring myself to hit you," she said, taking a step away from him. "At least not for real. Can't we just do some mock training? You won't get the most out of it unless we practice for real." "I just want you to be safe," he said, seeming worried. "I don't mind." "Really? All right. You're right. I promise I will not hurt you for real." Ingrid shook her head. She looked away from Dmitri. He looked so pretty in the moonlight, but didn't want to get caught admiring him. She also didn't want to get carried away and focus on things like romance, though she wanted to focus only on training. In addition to looking pretty, Dmitri also smelled really nice. He always carried a refreshing lavender scent because it was the soap Didi always picked out for him. He wondered why she kept looking away. "Is something the matter?" "No. Nothing is the matter. She touched the side of her face. "I'm in a bit of pain. That's all," she told him, releasing a deep breath. "I'm sorry to hear that." "Truly." Dmitri sighed. "I hope I haven't overstayed my welcome, but, is there anything I can do for you at the moment? To ease your pain, I mean." No, Ingrid shook her head, though what she really wanted was for him to stay. She would never tell him that though. "I'm fine really." "Are you sure? I just want to double check. If you change your mind, don't be afraid to come find me. No matter the time," he told her. "I'm a busy person, but never too busy for you. Promise me you won't hesitate to reach out." Ingrid smiled slightly. "I promise." Though she knew she was never going to reach out. She would feel guilty to take the time out of his day. "All right. I have your word, so I better expect to see you coming to visit every now and then." He nodded. "Don't think you are intruding on my day. I want you to come around, all right?" He wouldn't leave. "If you insist." She nodded. "I'm so grateful for everything you've done for me so far, Dmitri. I can't say that enough, really." "Good. And I will continue to do more for you. I know you can take care of yourself, but I know the situation you're in, and I want to do what I can. As both a leader and a friend." He took a weird step forward like he was gonna hug her, but then stopped himself and went back. He raised his arms a few inches, but then dropped them. He wanted to give her a hug, but didn't want to leave. "Oh. What?" She was a bit confused by his actions. She continued, "You being there for me tomorrow is going to help tremendously." She sighed deeply. "Right. Yes. And I don't mean to make things awkward, but, if you wanted me to pretend to be your love interest just for the day, I would." He was okay with it because it was just pretending. This was something he wanted to do for Ingrid's safety only. Just to get that cruel man to back off. Well, I mean, if he found out I was cheating on him, I have a feeling he would give me an injury I could never come back from, Ingrid sadly replied. As long as you're there, and he knows you're the prince, that should be enough. At least, I hope. Well, what if this arranged marriage happened behind my back, not the other way around? That would give me the chance to remove him from the picture. Would it not? He was relentlessly trying to help her and find solutions. You have a point there, Ingrid said softly. I appreciate it, Dmitri. We'll skirt around the idea in conversation with him. Maybe he'll get scared or something. Wouldn't that be nice? To see him scared would be a treat. And even better if we watch him scurry away with his tail between his legs. Dmitri chuckled. Will you be happy once he's gone forever? I mean, mood-wise. I miss the old Ingrid. The one who would sit down with me and clear a whole plate at mealtimes and talk the entire time about how delicious the food is. In reality, he loved sharing a meal with her because she described the food so well he could almost taste it himself. Ingrid frowned. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be such a burden when it comes to having fun. She looked away from him, rubbing her upper arm insecurely. I will be happy. I think. Once my wounds heal, and I have no more marks from this situation left on my body. Don't say that. You're not a burden. I'm just saying the Ingrid I know and love is buried there somewhere, and I hope to see her again soon. That's all, Dmitri gently said. Thank you, Dmitri. She had a lump in her throat, and it was obvious. That really means a lot coming from you. I haven't felt like myself lately, that's true. You noticing and caring really does mean a lot. Dmitri noticed her strained speech, but he definitely didn't intend to bring her to tears. He felt bad. I've known you since we were kids. There's no way I would have failed to notice anything was wrong. He still didn't want to leave even though it was pretty late. Ingrid smiled. Heh. I was just talking with Felix about our childhood earlier today. She told him. Lovely times, those were. Honestly, sometimes I wish I could go back. To a time where Glenn was still here, and we hadn't a care in the world. Me too, was all he said, staring right past her. His eyes were fixated on the space just behind her, and he looked kind of scared for a moment. Chapter 69, Confessions. Oh. Prince Dmitri. She spoke softly. Are you all right? I apologize for bringing up such a weighty topic. She frowned. He blinked, removing himself from the trance. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine, he rubbed the back of his neck. Of course, he looked sleep-deprived and in need of some rest, but he wouldn't leave. Hey, enough about me, but I feel like you have been off as well, Your Highness. She said, I apologize if this is rude, but you've been rather violent as of late. And at meals, you're always staring off into space. Like just now. Oh, have I? He acted like he didn't know, even though he really did. He just hadn't been thinking about how much his actions were reflecting himself to others. I didn't realize. He was trying to hold it together in front of Ingrid. Her mention of Glenn just triggered his distress, but he didn't want to show it because he was trying to help her. It's okay, it's okay. She comforted him. She spoke softly, as if the next words she said might spook him or something. I have noticed. Felix and Sylvain have as well. She told him, are you okay? Yes, he said, distantly. He kept zoning in and out of his conversation with Ingrid. The illusion of Glenn was standing right behind her, so he was having trouble making eye contact. He was making eye contact with her, but breaking it right away each time to look at Glenn. He didn't like how fast his state of mind changed in just an instant. Do you need anything? Maybe, some tea or something? She asked, noticing that something was weirdly wrong with him at the moment. He didn't want to tell Ingrid about his poor state of mind, even though she probably already knew there was something wrong. Tea. He couldn't look away from Glenn, and he said his words like he genuinely didn't hear Ingrid the first time. Sorry, what was that? He was trying to shut out Glenn's voice. Dmitri, She frowned. Please, won't you step inside? She stepped to the right, pointing her arm in through the open door. When she did that, she happened to point right at Glenn, which sort of troubled him even more. He stepped inside, but found himself toe-to-toe with the imaginary Glenn, and he flinched a little bit, closing his eyes. He hoped Ingrid didn't see that, but he eventually took a seat, clutching the fabric of his pants above his knees. I won't stay too late. I've already been here for a while. You must be trying to get ready for bed. No. You're more important, Ingrid said, taking the braid out of your hair. You haven't been well. It's a fact. And we've all been avoiding asking you about it. She brushed her hair out, then sat beside Dmitri. Are you okay? She asked once more. He stayed staring at the floor, but that just changed his vision. Instead of seeing Glenn standing, he saw him lying on the floor, dead. He closed his eyes and looked away as Ingrid asked him if he was okay, then he finally said, no, and his voice came out barely above a whisper. It sounded like it was hard to admit and that he didn't want to say it. I know you're not. I know, she said. She raised her hand to put on his shoulder, but pulled it away. What has been troubling you? I don't want to frighten you, he said in a low tone. He nervously pressed his hands together as he hunched over a little. Frighten me? Dmitri, no, she shook her head. You couldn't. Please tell me your troubles. I will not think differently of you, I never could. He paused for a while, then looked at her. I still see him. Glenn. It sounded like it was very hard for him to speak. Every second of every day I'm tormented by visions of the dead. Those who were lost in the tragedy, those who I have killed, he said, every day. He took a deep breath. I cannot close my eyes at night without seeing the tragedy play out again in front of my eyes. Oh, Dmitri, her voice wavered, and this time, she didn't hesitate to pull him into a hug. I cannot even fathom the things you have been going through. Just how long have you been suffering in silence? He reached for her and clung to her like a frightened child. His breathing suggested that he was on the verge of tears. A long time, too long. He took a deep, shaky breath. Although he had did it to help him when he needed it most, it was nice to have others who he could rely on, and he trusted Ingrid. She didn't say anything for a while, just squeezed him tightly. Please. Don't struggle alone any longer. She shook her head. You have a hard time relying on others, I know you do. But please, she pulled away, I will always be here for you. She looked down at her hands for a moment. She so selfishly wanted to ask him about Glenn, how he looked, the things he said. She spoke quietly, I really do miss Glenn. He was absolutely perfect. And as the days go on, I forget more and more about him. I can barely even picture his face anymore. It's so weird. His voice. I never wanted to forget his voice. I begged my memory not to let me forget his voice. But it's all a blur to me. He hugged her back just as tightly in silence, but his voice sounded strained when he finally spoke because he was trying too hard to keep tears from spilling out. He almost accidentally let a sob slip out. I see him so clearly, but he's always angry. Or sad. Or dead. And I wish I could see him looking happy so that I could describe it to you, he said, and when he speaks, he's always so. He cleared his throat a little. I'm sorry. This is difficult. I see him every day and I wish he would disappear, but you can't see him ever again and you wish you could. No, Dmitri. Please stop apologizing. She gently reached out and put her hands on his cheeks. It's going to be all right, we're going to find a way to help you get through this. I promise. Her hands were shaking. Her touch was comforting to him, so he gently closed his eyes. He still had his arms gently around her, and he was shaking a little as well. Thank you, your support means the world to me. I mean that. He moved his hands up to her face as well, not really realizing that he was probably being misleading at the moment. He just felt comforted by her and wanted to provide comfort somehow in return. Her cheeks became bright pink. Your Highness, she lowered her hands slightly, looking intently at his face. She blinked a few times, seeming very conflicted. Sorry. He removed his hands from her face, realizing that he may have made her feel uncomfortable by doing that. He said, I just felt like you needed the comfort. I wanted to help. I apologize if I overstepped any boundaries. No. Oh no, not at all. She instinctively grabbed his hands and put them back on her cheeks. Oh okay. I'll keep them there then, he said, leaving his hands where they were. His hands were warm, strong, and a bit calloused from always training, working, and carrying a weapon. I feel safe when I am with you. So I want you to feel the same around me. Know that even if I show violence, my hands will only be kind to you. Like this. Ingrid broke down after hearing him speak to her so kindly. Dmitri, I'm so sorry. She gently pushed him away from her. You are so kind, if only, she trailed off. His final words really tugged at her heart. Ingrid, he let his hands drop, wondering what she was sorry about. He frowned. If only what? He asked, wondering why she didn't finish what she was about to say. I'm kind to you because you deserve it. You're receiving so much pain, and I want to make up for it. However much pain is inflicted upon you, I wish to equalize with tender care. That's just how it works, in my mind. Yes, I understand that, but not in the. She trailed off. Never mind. Please, forget it. I want to focus on you. She said, your issues are far more severe. No. They're not. My issues are all in my head, your issues are real. They're happening right in front of my eyes. I can't change the past, but I can change your future. Right. She nodded her head. My fiancé is meeting me in the gardens tomorrow at 9 a.m., just after breakfast. If you can't make it, please do not fret. I understand your plate is full. She said, quite possibly on seconds, or maybe thirds. She attempted to lighten the mood with a joke. Dmitri thought the joke was quite clever, and it actually forced a laugh out of him. That was clever, he said, smiling slightly. But anyway, I will be there. I promise. He lightly placed his hand on top of hers, and gave it a gentle double tap of his hand before taking it away. She smiled. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow then, all right? If your visions are plaguing you in the middle of the night, do not hesitate to come here for refuge. She told him wholeheartedly. Right, although I made Dada the same promise, so maybe I'll alternate. He said with a sigh, then got up. Don't hesitate if you need me as well. I'm always here for you, Ingrid. He said, then started walking out. He hesitated before heading down the hall toward his room, which was almost all the way at the end of the hallway. Ingrid stepped out into the hallway, and watched as he walked away. She secretly wished he would stay, but knew in reality, it could never be. She went back into her room, finally heading to bed. Then, it was morning. However, it seemed that Ingrid's stupid fiancé wasn't the only visitor today. There was a carriage headed for Gareg Mach adorned with the Almiran coat of arms. Byleth, Rhea, Hanneman, Manuela, Geralt, Seath, and Catherine were all required to greet the carriage at the front gates. Rhea walked down the steps, her eyes fixated on the carriage. I wonder who this could be, she whispered. An attendant stepped out of the carriage, then rolled out a red carpet that unfurled all the way to the bottom of the steps of the monastery. They opened the door of the carriage, and none other than Prince Shahid of Almira stepped out. Guards walked with him on either side as he started walking toward the Archbishop. Chapter 70, Prince Shahid. Rhea smiled at the sight of the Almiran prince. Hello, Prince Shahid. It is a surprise to see you here at Gareg Mach. May I ask what business you have here today? She asked. Shahid looked around, his body language conveying that he already demanded as much attention as possible from everyone. You're struggling. Merchants from Fodlan have been talking all about the dark mages. Yes? I mean, I knew the people of Fodlan were weak but not this weak. He smirked. Excuse me. Rhea narrowed her eyes. Yes, we are having issues with numerous dark mages. I will not deny that. But we will not accept aid from you unless you treat this holy place and its people with respect. Did I ever say that I was here to provide aid? Shahid said, tipping his chin up slightly. I'm here because I have official business with the heir of House Reagan. And I heard he was attending school here. Oh, yes. He is here. Ria nodded. Everyone is having breakfast in the dining hall at the moment. Feel free to take a look around. We will be able to talk with you more in the future. She seemed a bit offended by him, and commanded her little clique to walk away with her. Byleth stayed back, staring at Shahid for a while, then turned around. Shahid noticed her staring at him for a prolonged amount of time and pointed at her. You. What are you looking at? Can't get enough of my grandiose, can you? Well, you're looking at the next king of Almira. You'd best remember my face. He started walking. My servant come. I need you to record every word of my meeting for the report. Yes, Prince Shahid. The servant who rolled out the carpet said, following him. She glanced at Byleth for a moment before they were too far away. Byleth thought Shahid was simply splendid. She glanced at him once more before walking back inside. Claude was inside the dining hall, sitting with Hilda, Dimitri, and Dudu. Dimitri was a little too preoccupied with his meeting with Ingrid. He wasn't really interacting with the group because he knew that would be taking place in an hour or so. Shahid strutted through the dining hall. The servant began to speak to Shahid. Your Majesty, are you hungry from the journey? I'm sure the monastery would be willing to cook you something. Shahid cut her off and walked straight up to the table that Claude was sitting at. Well. Fancy seeing you here. He narrowed his eyes and smiled deviously at Claude. Claude's jaw dropped open. What the His stomach dropped at the sight of Shahid. For once, he was at a loss for words. He stood up. Can I ask what you're doing here? And why? And, what? He stuttered. Oh, you know. I'm just here to have a chat with my dear neighbor. Shahid said, it's important. I request that we speak at once. The servant was standing nervously beside her liege, holding a book and a pen in her hand. Shahid said, I'd love to know all about how Fodlan's been treating you. Okay. Claude stood up. He realized that everyone at the table was looking at him. Everyone, this is Prince Shahid of Almira. Yeah. Okay. He turned and looked at Shahid, still seeming a bit dumbfounded. Come with me. He led the way out of the dining hall and into his dorm room. Prince Shahid the Great. Shahid corrected him. I'm greater than any of you will ever be, and I have the strength to show for it. Now let's go. He started walking with Claude, a sour look on his face. He followed Claude into his dorm, then looked around. This is it? Wow. Fodlan is a dump. I assumed we'd be meeting in a grand hall or, at a round table or something, he said. The servant bowed to Claude. It's a pleasure to meet you, Claude. I'm just going to record some notes per the prince's request, if that is all right with you. No. Shahid exclaimed. What do you mean, if it is all right with you? My orders trump his. Take notes regardless. Okay then. I guess I don't mind that you take notes. Claude put his hands on his hips. Whatever, not important. Why are you here? He demanded, taking his attention off the servant and back to Shahid. Kinda rude for you to show up uninvited like this. Shahid said, showing up uninvited is the Almiran way. We don't need an invitation. I don't need an invitation. He pointed to himself. But I'm here because of a reason you know all too well, because of information I was unaware of until just recently. He took a few steps forward. Claude didn't answer. Sorry, what? I'm not following. He said, all cocky. Why don't you enlighten me? He didn't budge when Shahid began moving forward. Shahid marched straight up to him and jabbed his finger at his face. You are my brother. Khalid. All this time, you were right under my nose. He was angry at Claude's cocky behavior. I can't believe you've been in Fodlan, of all places, and now I learn you're heir to House Reagan? What is this? What is my life? Some sort of grand lie. Maybe. Claude shrugged his shoulders. I also don't call me that. My name is Claude now. Claude. He spelled it out. So what if I'm in Fodlan? Why are you so angry about it? He asked with a small frown. Shouldn't that be better for you? No. That is not your name. You are Khalid, my younger brother. I know it's true. You can no longer put up this charade in front of me and expect me to believe it. I am not dull, I can see through your lies. I will always see through your lies. And now I am going to take something from you in return for this snake-like behavior. Shahid was furious. Okay, stop, half-brother, technically, Claude said with a small shrug. Why do you care so much? Would you just calm down? He seemed a little nervous for some reason. I am not partaking in any snake-like behavior. He rolled his eyes. Yes. You are, Shahid replied. Almira and the Alliance are neighbors, and you're heir to House Reagan, the strongest house of the Alliance. How, after all these years, have I not known it was you? He grimaced. I am going to seize the Alliance from you, and you are not going to have the strength to fight back because my army will be 1,000 times bigger and stronger than yours will ever be. Claude chuckled. Please stop. You can keep Almira, okay? Just stay out of my business, he replied. I came here with my mother for a reason. Just, why do you need to make things difficult? He asked sadly. You are the one making things difficult. So, in exchange for the hassle you've caused, we fight. Now. Shahid pulled a dagger out of his belt, but didn't attempt to harm Claude with it. The servant dropped her things and sort of got between them. Your Majesty, now isn't the time for this. What the Shahid? Stop. Claude was appalled. He backed away a bit. Can you calm down? He asked again. Just what exactly do you want from me here? Do I have to repeat myself again? I want the Alliance. And I want you dead, Shahid snarled. He backed away slightly after the servant got between them. What the hell? Claude stepped back. What's so wrong with Almira? He raised his hands in feigned surrender. Nothing. Almira is great. Which is why I'm going to take over the Alliance and expand my reach. Think of the fame I'll acquire upon doing that. He laughed. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the monastery. Now. Claude said, folding his arms. We don't want you here. You're just going to cause trouble. I don't have to listen to the likes of you. You have no real power over me. And you know it. Whether you want me here or not. I'm here to stay. Especially now that the Alliance has no choice but to bend at the knee to me. He turned around. What? Why do you say that? Claude asked, secretly grabbing a stray arrow that was on his desk and hiding it within his sleeve. Oh, don't play coy. Shahid turned back around to look at Claude with a grimace. I've warned you. I could have launched a surprise attack, but I figured I'd let you know first that you shall rue the day. That's so stupid. Claude broke out in a laugh. Okay, Shahid. Thanks for the warning. I'm not sure why you did dash. The door opened, and Byleth walked in. I don't know why you're laughing. Shahid snapped, right in the middle of when Claude was talking. He crossed his arms, but when Byleth walked in, he looked over. Bow, he demanded, hoping that she would think he was so hot and do anything he told her to do. Byleth blinked at him a few times. She really wanted to. Maybe even kiss his boots. But she didn't. Claude laughed. You're really making a fool out of yourself right now, Shahid, you know that. I'm not the weak one here. And if this one's not going to bow to me, I might just have to make her. He gave Byleth an intimidating look. Shahid's comment made Byleth weak, but she didn't let it show. What the stop it? Claude scolded Shahid, grabbing Byleth's arm and pulling her over to him. Humph. I better go. I have preparations to make. Shahid turned and started walking out. The servant lingered behind for a few moments and looked at them. She quickly handed Byleth a note, and then turned and ran to catch up with Shahid. Byleth almost dropped the note, not expecting it, then caught it in midair. Can you believe that guy? Claude slammed the door so hard a vase clattered onto the floor, but didn't break. What is that? He asked, noticing that Byleth was holding a note. He peeked over Byleth's shoulder as she opened the note, reading it along with her. The note said, Professor, I apologize for Prince Shahid's crass behavior. He is planning on launching an attack about 1 month from now, possibly sooner. Claude and Byleth stared at each other for a moment, then discussed what they should do. They ended up reporting to Seath. Seath was still with Flame. He had never left her side ever since she had fallen into her coma, and he had a huge stack of books next to him. He was reading aloud from a journal instead of a book. And the baby seal reunited with her father, and they lived a happy life forevermore. The end. He finished and set the journal down, then sighed, looking at her sadly. Seath. I'm sorry to interrupt, Byleth said as they approached him, but the prince from Almira who just came for a visit is planning to attack 1 month from now. She alerted him without missing a second. What? Seath drew his attention away from Flame. This is urgent news. We must make preparations. I will speak to the Archbishop about it, but I'd wager this month's mission for the 3 houses will be to take part in the defending of the Alliance, I assume. Yes. The Alliance is being targeted. Especially Claude. Byleth looked up at him. Claude sighed. Yeah, unfortunately I'm the one he wants. I'm sorry for dragging you all into this. No need for apologies. I understand that this isn't your fault. Almira always takes the first chance they can to strike. I'm afraid Prince Shahid is going in over his head. His army may be strong, but we are stronger, no matter the state of our base of operations. Claude nodded. Yeah, he's gonna pack a punch though. There's no denying that. Byleth cut in. Thank you, Seath, for relaying the information to the other staff. She said, also, there's a leftover donut for you in the teacher's lounge. She and Claude exited. I'm afraid making it to the teacher's lounge is a difficult task for me at the moment, but if the donut should find my way to me, I will be very pleased. Seath watched them leave, thinking about how he might tell the Archbishop the news. Once they were gone, he resumed reading to Flame. They were all stories he wrote for her himself. Check the description for the links to the author.